Welcome to the Otherwise, guys. It's Boy Cool Shakur. Right now, I'm here with.
Jewel Ifeguni, hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
So I had to link up with you.
Yes.
A major influential person in the gaming world.
Period.
So I want to get some background on you. You know what I mean? Find out where you come from and find out what it's like working in the industry.
Well, first, I'll introduce myself because I wear a ton of different hats. So currently, I'm still founder and CEO of YouMatter Studios. It's a media company I started when I was 19. And it first was a game company because I saw a gap in the industry. And I wanted to create a studio that focused on creating content where children always saw themselves.
Gotcha.
And so that's why I started with YouMatter Studios. And then it evolved into an overall media company because from starting with games, I evolved into virtual reality because I got the opportunity to understand how to create impactful films where people could be in other people's shoes. And so the first film I made in VR was really talking about Sandra Bland's story because I really wanted folks in my class to understand this is what happens when it comes to police relations with underrepresented groups, but specifically with Black women. And so after creating that and then seeing the community's reaction and also meeting her mother, that's what inspired me to create my award-winning film, The Drive.
How was it meeting her mom?
So meeting her mom, powerful, very powerful. One thing is I was afraid to show her just because it's I would imagine it would be very traumatic because she lost her daughter.
Yeah.
But for her, it kind of emphasized how much of an activist Sandy was. Because I kid you not, when she met me and then when she actually saw it, she was quoting Sandy. Yeah. And I'm wow, it just was amazing that, Sandy is still, no matter what, revered as an activist and outspoken. And her mother was just very happy that I was able to highlight her in that light. And overall, Geneva, she's great. That's her mother's name. So,
okay.
Yeah. So meeting her was very powerful. But that's why meeting her inspired my next film because it still reenacted a police pullover. But I wanted to make sure it also covered the mother's perspective because we don't talk about who's left behind. We also don't talk about just the stress that Black women have bringing Black children into this world. And when I look at the statistics, I look at our hypertension rates, I look at how it impacts us health-wise, I was I have to cover her perspective as well.
The stress, impacting us with the stress?
With the stress, because it's already stressful enough to have a child in this world, but when you have a child in this world where there's a chance they could lose their life just because of the color of their skin, that's something we carry with us regardless.
Right.
So that's why it was so important for me to carry or showcase that perspective in the upcoming film. So in the upcoming film, The Drive, it reenacted a police pullover from 3 different perspectives. It was from Davion's perspective, so young Black teen male. He was in the passenger seat. Did that. I was intentional about that because I wanted the driver to be from an underrepresented group but not Black, so I ensured that he was Indian, which actually caused a lot of conversation.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, what you want to say?
She almost got canceled?
So, let me say this.
Oh, shit.
It was the kind of conversation where it shows no matter who you are, you're part of this conversation. Because even in the beginning, without giving the film away, you all can check it out at YouMatter Studios. .com as well as on the YouTube channel.
They gotta pay?
No, it's free. Yeah, it's for the public. Yeah, so check it out. But I intentionally scripted it in the beginning where his friend is very chillax. He's oh, don't stress, Davion. We can drive this way, because even though he's not white, he still doesn't understand what the Black experience is. So he's oh, we're fine. And Davion's no, we need to make it to this party. You need to drive carefully. So that's why I wanted to have the person be South Asian or Indian, driving. Then Davion, who you'll actually be in the perspective of, is in the passenger. And then you have his mother. And then you also have a young white male officer as well.
Gotta have him.
Look, that was difficult.
Right, finding the actor to play that role, or what was difficult about it?
It was difficult being in a position to empathize with the officer.
Okay.
Because I think when it was in Sandy's case, it was very obvious, the officer was in the wrong. Everyone saw the cams. Everybody saw, so it was just, creating it was more I was just grabbing, what actually happened and did some, just the theatrical twist that didn't change the story, but made it more immersive. But in this case, where it's like, how do we kind of bring something that allows you to look from different perspectives? It took some internal soul searching, but I'm also grateful that me and the team really took our time to interview police officers. So we did heavy research. We were at University of Illinois, so we did research with the Champaign Police Station and the Urbana Police Station. And it was interesting to see the system within policing, especially when it comes to mental health support too. And that's why we put it in the script where the officer had actually recently lost his partner. Okay. And so he's coming into the field with that trauma. You know, so that's why it would be easier for him to pick up a gun because his partner literally died.
When y'all did the, the questionnaire with the police officers, you don't think someone was like kind of lying on it, like giving some? You know, sometimes you be feeling like, do you feel this? Do you feel like you put? Sometimes you just be feeling like you just run through it, like almost.
Like, could there be like bias there and everything? Yeah. In terms of like the research, I was there mostly just for like the interviews where that's kind of where like literally it was almost like this actually, like the person I was working with was like interviewing them and they were just answering. And for the most part, like it seemed like it was very genuine. Okay, yeah. But also like what they're going to look like not being genuine, or at least like.
That's what I'm saying. It's a part of their job to give you the good answer.
Exactly. I mean? So. It was also a while ago, so it's like hard for me to like go back, but I will say they gave us enough.
Gotcha.
And I will say even to this day, because I've shown so many different people the film, even like people I've worked with at game studios where like they're older white men, they're looking at it and like, oh wow, like I actually see the perspectives. Like it gets everyone thinking and having that conversation. And that's actually what inspired our like spin-off series Drive the Conversation, where we had like community members and police members just kind of talking about things that were going on in this world to show like, hey, we can like bridge this. And so that happened for some time. And then from there, it kind of evolved into our show. It was originally Why We're Here, and now it's How We Got Here. Okay. So I was inspired to create that in 2020 just because we all saw what was happening. Okay. Right. Like there was like the wave of enlightenment where people were like, oh my God, racism exists? How did you feel during that time? Like, how did you feel during that time?
See, during that time, with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
Man, I was just looking at it, like, cause I mean, it's nothing new to me, and like the way people act, they know, they just act like they don't know, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm just watching them play their game, but I just was watching everything play out.
I feel that, especially that part where it's like they know, but like now they're like, oh my goodness,
you gonna act like, oh my God, I didn't know, you know,
you do,
because when you get mad, what you say? Call people nigga.
Exactly.
So it's like what's going on, but there are some that are blind to some of the things because they don't even care. So.
Exactly. So like in that sense, I was kind of like my form of like being part of the conversation was through creating and writing, and it was that thing where it's like, oh, I'm glad that people are like at least trying to wake up, but it was just that frustration where it's like, what?
Yeah.
What? Like.
So with the show though, how did we get here? Like, cause you only have one episode out.
Two. Yes.
I only seen one when I went to. It was only one.
I know, because I hit the first one. So, like, I know we're going to get into, like, the games and film industry thing, like, but mostly games. Like, but I will say, overall, just experiencing creating content from, like, a indie producer perspective, I've learned a lot about the balance of of quality of content and timing of content and, like, what your strategy is to, like, get the most eyes on it. And I'll tell you, when I started Why We're Here, that evolved into How We Got Here, I was just like, my main thing is I want to create content that is powerful enough to spark conversation, but I also want it to be like on a streaming service as well.
No, it was good. Yeah. And I seen it, like, I'm like, okay, words. Because I mean, every podcast or show has their own way of releasing stuff. It can be once a month, it can be once a year, it can be whatever. As long as it's getting released. But I was like, is there more? You know what I mean? Because it was nice. It was long conversation. And it was like, what I liked about it was it had like multiple people. It was like, sound like 8 people having a conversation. You know what I mean? So it's like.
Wait, which episode was this? Was this the podcast or was this a YouTube one?
It's the podcast.
Oh,
That's what I'm asking. What happened to that?
Okay. Oh, okay. See, because I've been creating so much stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. Podcast will still continue. So stay tuned. It just may evolve into either we'll keep it as how we got here, or it'll be more from like just Jewel's perspective, which doesn't change, but it might be named differently. But just stay tuned. Like I definitely continue to plan to have like community type conversations, because the way you're like, oh, it seems like a lot of people are talking. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I like that.
You like it? Because it's very like communal. Yes. Because I want to make sure that people don't just stop from 2020. Like we should get used to having these tough conversations, but not just in our communities, but across communities. I really think that's like how we can move forward, is have the conversation, but like not have it just leave in a conversation.
But that's why we here though, because I feel like me and you in two totally different worlds. And to be able to come sit down and have a conversation, that even like kind of, you know, probably get eyes on you and hear what you got to say and vice versa. You know what I mean? So
period.
Yeah, that starts.
Yes. So with that said, that's kind of like how like the studio has evolved. Is like we had the game studio evolved into like VR filmmaking, then it was like traditional shows where it's like what, just to like summarize what it is, because you've heard it but not everybody else has heard it. Think about it as a show where we talk about Black history. Let's just say I'm like Gen Zennial Oprah, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I'll interview folks, and then what you hear is like the panel conversation, where it's a mixed group of people reacting and also sharing their perspective on like the topic. So we'll talk about Black hair, we'll talk about gentrification, we'll talk about what happened with Roe versus Wade. Like we'll talk about everything. But also YouMatter Studios, like our whole goal is to really equip the next generation to be inclusive. So that's either through our productions that I just listed, or it's through our live engagement. So just like how you saw or heard like the communal conversations, how do we put that into a live situation where there's also like performances and all these things, right? I kind of think about it as like 106 in Park meets kind of the Oprah show, if that makes sense. You know, but touring with like schools and colleges and all that stuff. But with that said, that's been a journey. But also the other half of it is I've been balancing it with my career. You know what I'm saying? So as of like what I recently did, I was a game producer for Minecraft for like, specifically I was a technical program manager. And I'll talk about like the difference between the two, because they're kind of the same, but like we're gonna get into it. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I worked for Minecraft for a couple of years, and then prior to that, I was like a community program manager with Gaming for Everyone at Xbox. And so I will say that's when I launched being in like the career games industry. But honestly, I feel like I've been in the games industry ever since I started YouMatter Studios. But yeah, so just kind of moving though into my journey into the games industry. I already told you like there was the start of it with YouMatter Studios, but let's rewind just a little bit before. All right. So I was fortunate enough going into like freshman year of college. I already was like, regardless, I know I want to be successful. I don't know exactly how, right? But I knew like, okay, I know how to code. So I'm going to be learning all that stuff. A Microsoft recruiter came to our school and did networking. I told her like, hey, I'm passionate about coding, yada, yada. Fast forward, got flown out to interviews, got my first Microsoft internship 3 months into college, period. You know, haters gonna hate, and I'll talk about how they did, but you know, that's not important right now. But being in that internship was great, because at the end of the internship, there's this hackathon called Whack Whack 1 Week. And so I worked with friends to build a game called #Queen, where my little sister was the main character. And so, yeah, I know, right? It was lit, yo. Like, it was even like just learning, because I didn't really know how to build a game at that time, but I got exposed to Unity game engine, where you can like, you know, basically you can code it, but you can also like have assets and all these things.
So coding for computers and websites is different for gaming, because I heard they use different programs. I heard they use different programs. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
It's similar and different, if that makes sense, right? So the languages you use may be different, right? So like for a website, stylistically, I may use HTML and CSS, and then back end, someone's gonna come for me because they'd be like, that's not right. But look, I'm rusty. Okay, I try it. Yeah. But like back end, you're probably using Java or C++. JavaScript, let's like in the middle. Yeah. When you're going into games, it really depends on like what engine you're using. I think when we did #Queen, we did C++.
How you found people to help you do the game?
Well, it was, you know, that's something I realized is one of my superpowers. It's really easy for me to get people to be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, come for this cause, do this, you know.
That's that power.
Look, period. But I will say, like, a lot of my friends that were like in the internship with me, they wanted to do it too. But we were still like, oh, we want to build this game, but we don't know how.
So how y'all did it? I gotta hear this. How y'all did it? How y'all made it happen?
Manuel, I'm gonna give a shout out to him. He was like a vet at Microsoft. He's like, yo, I'm gonna join you. And he basically taught us all how to build the game. Like, that was what it was. We had the vision, and he was like, cool, like, this is how you make the character run. This is how you write this function. This is how you, like, make sure the character has lives. Okay, maybe we don't have time to, like, do the design. Because, you know, hackathons, like, you get, like, 24, you know, right? It's, like, you know, tight timing. But he, like, educated us all on, like, how to do it. And for me, I, like, took it and ran with it. Yeah. After that, I was like, no, like, I'm coming back to college and I want to continue to build that. And then it evolved into, like, okay, I actually just want to build my whole studio. So that's how we learn. It's like, honestly, it took a champion to come in and be like, hey, like,
the mentor for
real. And he's dope. And even to this day, he still, like, you know, checks in and comments and, like, but I do want to give a shout out to Manuel, because it also showed me, oh, this is possible, you know? So fast forward, because I already kind of said, like, the YouMatter Studios thing. That's how I kind of got into Xbox, to be honest, because at the time I was part of the Visual Studio team as a developer. So that team focuses on building tools for developers to code. So, like, it was cool but boring.
You ain't like doing it?
I mean, like, it's hard for me to say this because, you know, let's just be clear, like, I wouldn't even just say black women, but black people, we make up 2% of the gaming industry, and around the same thing in tech. And then assume for black women it's a lot less. So, like, I say all of this from a position that I'm so grateful, extremely grateful for the opportunities I've had, specifically in the tech and gaming industry. But as you can see, I love to talk. I love being in front of the camera. Like, that was just not my passion, and that's on period. You know what I'm saying? So I did 2 internships with, like, that same team, but also, like, I want to give a shout out to BAM. So BAM is Blacks at Microsoft. So Microsoft has, like, a ton of, like, different groups for, like, employees from underrepresented groups. So I was able to meet my mentor, Sarah Potter. Shout out to her, for real. She is, like, a second mom. Period. She saw my passion. She's like, yo, I know you love games. I know you're into inclusion. What have you heard of gaming for everyone in Xbox? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, okay. I want to, like, go ahead and, like, check it out. So they weren't taking interns at the time.
So it's like a different department?
Different department. Like, let's just say, like, Microsoft had, like, all these, like, prongs, and I was, like, like, the prong was, like, almost the complete opposite of gaming from how I saw it, you know? Yeah. But I was fortunate enough to, like, finally, like, get into that role when I came back to interview full time. And so that gave me a lot of perspective on, like, what it's like to work in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, especially as a black woman. I also got to see perspectives from, like, other leaders, and also got to see how other studios operating. So it was very eye-opening, and I learned a lot, got to, like, meet a lot of dope people. But, like, getting back into games, like, I didn't feel like I was actually part of building the game. I felt like I was more so, like, advising, and that's, like, what I missed is, like...
See, that's what I was going to ask. Like, hey, man, what you was doing with Minecraft? What
look, we're about to get to
it. What's the cheat code?
So let me tell you about all the Minecraft stuff. So I just wanted to, like, make it clear, like, that was, like, my whole journey. But then, as you can see, I was like, look, I want to get close to product. I was fortunate enough to see an opening as a technical program manager at Minecraft, or Mojang Studios. That's really the studio. So I started Minecraft in 2020. No, it was 2020. Anyways, so my role was consisting of working on like basically like our foundations team. So as our team, it was our team that basically was dealing with the foundation of the game. So if you think about all the system updates, right, for Xbox, Switch, iPhone, all that stuff, or you think about when players are like crashing, or if they need to load their worlds, or like things that are just very much like the basics, but the foundation of the game to keep it going. That's what my team worked on.
Okay. So you was doing all the updates. Whenever update, you got a new one that's coming out.
I mean, I did enough, you know what I'm saying? See? So that was, I'll say going into the role, I was like, oh my goodness, because I had not been, you know, it'd been a long time since I've touched code, and I know I wasn't expected to, but also it'd been a long time since I've just been in that space. So working with like these senior developers, I was like, yikes, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. But it was amazing. So for example, a majority of my career I was working on one of our toughest system updates we worked on. And when it comes to like the gaming like release process, I was at the stage where they had already built like the beta of like the update. And so the real work came into and the understanding like, cool, like how are we going to like validate this? So that required me to like work with the testers to like, and there's like many types of many types of ways we validate like our testing too. Y'all, I'm giving y'all like the insights, okay?
See, I need that because the tester's the one who played the game and shit.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I don't think people know like you can get paid.
I know
A lot. I mean, though, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to be a games tester, like go on because they're living. Mm-hmm. They are living
and they're having fun.
Yes,
and that's that motherfucker. Because I mean, lately I've been seeing like a lot of games. They just put them out and it's not even done. Seem like what's up with that?
And it's hard because I can't speak. I think one thing
you can't speak on because you would. But
Minecraft, yeah. I think I'm interested in seeing how different studios operate with my next opportunity, because I'm also working on a game that like has billions of players. They have like a big foundation. It's from like a big corporate engine. Like this team was like there's like the team in Washington, then there's like the Stockholm team, and then there was like our vendor team. Some of them were largely based in Canada. So we had like a lot of support and everything. So that's why like you will always see top quality stuff coming from us. No matter what you'll be, I'm not saying other studios don't have top quality. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's like we have like actual standards before we can even have like a beta test go out the door. And that's the thing when it comes down to defining like those standards, like what are our performance goals? Even like what are our business goals? It's more of the business team, but especially like when it comes to our performance goals or like the look and the feel of it, that's kind of what a technical PM does is like in terms of like the process of role. Let's just say somebody from like product or business will come in and be like, hey, this is why we need to do this update, right? And then I'll be like, okay, bet, since that's validated, then I work with the developers and the testers and the data people, but mostly like developers to look like, cool, when can we actually get this done? And then also being very proactive with risk. That's something it took me a while to learn, but I realized.
What risk you talking about?
So risk or like what are all the things that could go wrong?
People hacking it or
even that too. Like it's from like a team standpoint. Like are we gonna have enough people? Like what about the holidays? Are people gonna be gone? But what about like I'm trying to think of like
budgeting and
there's budgeting. I'm trying to give you an example that doesn't like me like give too much away. But like, let's say there's like a design in the system that we're not confident in. Have we fully validated that? Or like if there's like positioning on like something that's happening in the game, like what happens if that doesn't work out and it hits out the doors? Like all those things, like you have to list them out proactively and then consistently monitor them. Even up to like when it's beyond release. But as a technical PM, like a sign of a good one is like you have a lot like jotted down your risk, like it's been like how likely is it, and you're always communicating that to leadership. That's another thing as a TPM. I had to do a lot of I don't want to say it was politicking is kind of the thing, but you have to be you know what I'm saying, like
everything.
You have to be a translator because you're with like the people that are in the ground building, like the developers. You're also with the testers that have to work with the developers to define all the test cases and validate these are the ones we want to prioritize. And then you're also working with leadership and management and business that may not understand like what it takes to build it, but they're like, we want to make this money.
You trying to make everybody, understand what everybody's saying and bring everybody together because nobody don't want to work together because they already in their little crews.
Exactly.
I got you. Politics, that's heavy.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Heavy.
It's heavy.
Yeah, that's heavy.
But it was really cool. Just, it's you're also like that coach, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, you're setting up all the meetings, but you're running it every day. And I can't tell you how many meetings because it was like a tough.
You used to yell at people? I can't see you yelling about it.
That's the thing,
It's like, I don't want to yell, but.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't yell at people. I will say this. Like, the energy you're getting now, this is like the energy I came to work with. I was just like, hey, everyone, teamwork makes the dream work, stuff. But I'd be like, no, we need to get this done.
Gotcha. And,
like, I think further into my role, I started to get the confidence more to be like, no, where is this? Like, this needs to be getting done. Like, it was because I was like, I can't expect XYZ person to get this done. I need to be like, yo, where is it? Hold them accountable, call them out in the meeting. I don't care how they feel, with a smile on my face. Yeah. So, I mean, if you find that as yelling, like, I call it positive reinforcement.
You're spanking some people.
Period. But, I don't know. I just learned so much in that role. And also another thing was like when I go back to like the gaming release process and all the pieces, right? All the different types of people I met with. So I already told you, like, there's the management, there's the developers who are building, there's the testers. Even with our testers, we had like different kind of like testing too, where it was like, okay, this is what we're manually testing. This is what we're testing just based off of performance. These are just like our standard tests too. Okay. And like, I feel like every studio is going to operate differently. But also it's cool, like meeting like the data scientists, because they would build out our dashboards where we could see like, okay, this is like how our product is performing based off like the beta players or based off like when we actually release out the door. And then of course there was our release management team, and we have some of the dopest release managers at Minecraft. Like shout out to all of them. Because with our specific update, we had to like actually like flight it out in like specific groups. So like, let's say group A has like 100 players, group B has like 1,000, because like we realized we couldn't 1,000% release right away. But like in that process, it was nice to kind of understand like, hey, these are the things that are going on behind the scenes to enable that to happen. Okay. So just like understanding that and understanding like the key metrics to like measure game performance, and just like politicking, creating the right documents too.
What do they use to track like the gaming? Is it the sales, or is it like, are you able to see who logs in or something? Or is that classified?
Ooh. I was like, you trying to get me fired, but I don't work there anymore. Can I just say all of the above?
Okay.
From a technical PM standpoint, though, I will say most of the things I would say on the dashboard that were relevant to me were more so around performance. So like, what's our crash rate? What's our load rate? Like, are people stuck at the sign-in screen? And also like there are specific events you could build so it would fire things in telemetry. So I'm going to break it down because I also didn't know what telemetry was until like I got it.
Just ask me
what is telemetry? So let's talk data. And it's so funny that I'm saying data because there's a really dope person I used to work with that is so passionate about data. I'm gonna give her a shout out. Her name's Kelly. She's awesome. Like, she's the queen of data, and I learned so much from her. So I hope I make her proud when I say this, what I'm gonna say. But let's just say telemetry is what data reads out, if that makes sense. So like, you can read out the data. You can also read out what like the telemetry is saying. So when players are playing something, we have a way to like see like what the output of what they're playing is. So let's say you are playing Minecraft, right? Let's say you play on your Xbox, right? So you put it in, we are reading your whole, let's say assuming we are reading your whole entire movement, but we're not like invasive. Like, we're not trying to like read your content or everything. Yeah, no. And let's be clear. Let's be very clear. Let's say you signed up for like the beta program. So you're expecting this, right?
Okay.
Okay, like, no, we're not invasive. No. Yeah, let's say you're like, yikes.
I got you. No, you already gave it away, but let's cover this up. Let's back it up and just say you're doing beta. Okay.
Beta. Okay. And also, like, let's just be clear, okay? Let's not take everything I say 100%.
Hey, these are other wise guys. They are paying attention. They caught exactly what you said.
Beta?
Yeah.
Beta. Okay. So let's say you have given consent and you're part of the beta program. Yeah. Cool. So for us, we're just like, for example, we're just trying to make sure like this update is working good for you. And we've defined it as like, okay, this update works good for you if you don't notice it. It's just like a update and you just keep playing. Yeah. So let's say we push start. You know, we have a telemetry event that, so when I say events, right, because even when you're coding or like writing something out is like, say, figure out the best way to like break it down. I want to write this code so I can read how a player is like behaving for the game. And so in this code, I'm going to define functions to catch things. So I have a function that says to start. So that means like, okay, at start, we start reading this, right? Mm-hmm. I have a function that's like session crashed or something like that. So it's like whenever a player crashes, it's going to fire. Mm-hmm. And when it says fire, like the player's not going to see it, but like we're going to see it on like, let's say it's like a paper or something where it's like, oh, this is how many times like this player like session crashed, which is good for us to know. So that's what I mean is like telemetry events is rewrite these events. So, cause we want to find out how's this firing up. So let's say we write an event to be like, okay, we want to know if someone's world is taking more than a minute to load. Gotcha. So let's write this event. So then the moment someone goes like 1 minute and 1 second, it fires. And so then we look at the report at the end, we can be like, oh, this person crashed this many times. This person like, and we can compare it too. Cause let's say we have a player that doesn't have the update. And then we have a player that does have the update. And we will compare and like, oh, this person crashed hella. Oh, but it was because of our update. Yikes.
Yeah, so we gotta change something.
Exactly. So that's why telemetry is so important. Is like we really want to read what's happening to our players, and that's why having that beta audience is so important. And honestly, if you translate it to film, it's the same thing. Like you want to have your homies like watch your content before it's out. I mean, you don't always have to have it watch it because whatever. But let's say you wanted to, or like your target audience, it's always it's the same thing as what we do in games. It's like having that beta group so we can just sample it before we release it to the whole world and then become a subject on Twitter. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Right? So
but even with some of those companies, they put out the beta and they still come out the exact same. Nothing changes and it's still that. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But
it's facts too, and I think I don't know what release management looks like in other companies. I'm excited to see like what that looks like, but I think it's that balance of like, what are your metrics for success? And also, do you care more about like being 100% quality, or do you want to just get it out as soon as you want to your fans? And there's no right or wrong answer.
It ain't.
It really, like, it's all about what your goals are. But I will say the role I had and the team I worked on, because they didn't focus on all the cool features. They focused on like keeping the lights on. I did have a new appreciation for like what it takes to create a game that is long lasting. Because if you have a foundation and the foundation's water, that's not going to last.
Facts.
But if you have a solid rock foundation, or like at least a sand that's going to get more hardened, then like that, then we can really build a house on that. And I'm just very fortunate to have worked with a team that was like really focusing on like being proactive on ensuring that we had a strong foundation for the game. So yeah, but I will say this, being a technical PM also felt like I was taking Calc 3 like every day. Like every day. And I always say this because like being a TPM and leading an entire program, especially a program that was as large as the one I was leading, you have to have knowledge about so many different things, but also be comfortable knowing that you're never going to know enough.
Yeah. I got you.
So it was like I had to absorb enough just to be able to at least like write the notes.
And you gotta be able to speak it too.
Exactly. Because we gave presentations like all the time to leadership just to like be like, hey, this is like where we're at. So that's another thing with the gaming release process is a lot of people will say like, it's like an agile work. Like we kind of work in agile. So that means like instead of like, because agile versus waterfall, and this is something now I'm just speaking not just from like a game production standpoint, but from like a tech production, tech program management. A lot of tech companies operate this way, is we work agile versus waterfall, because waterfall is like, let's say, hey, it's hard to kind of compare it to film. So maybe it's better to compare it to like a show versus like one big film. But like, it's like, hey, we're going to do all of this for like a couple months and then we'll have the show and then we'll test it out. Versus like agile is like, oh, every 2 weeks we're going to build just enough so we can watch just a little bit of it and make sure it's right, and we'll keep building and building. So even if we get to halfway and it's like, oh no, it's not right, we have built enough that you can still watch it.
Okay. So
that's like what we do in games, where we're always having goals. Like every sprint we want to build just enough and make sure it's at quality so we can keep going. That's the best way I can explain it, but that's like how we operated in most studios too. Is like you'll have like 2 week sprints. Okay. And so what it happens is like you have your goals for that sprint, you execute, and then at the end you have a sprint review and a sprint retro. So you'll have your sprint review, which is like, okay, like this is like what we accomplished and this is where we keep going. Sprint retro or retrospective is like, okay, this is like this is what worked, this is what didn't work, this is where we need to keep going, actually translate it into like action items. And we do that for like major releases as a whole studio. We'd also do it within like our little teams too. And this was helpful because I actually carried those practices into YouMatter Studios. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, this information is transferable. You can use it in your real life or whatever you got going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, that's also why I was grateful to be in that role. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right? Because it helped me become a better founder, you know, and help lead my team. But outside of that, no, that's a lot of, like, what it's like in the game industry. Behind the scenes.
I feel like I can work at the motherfucker now. You gave me all the insights.
Yes, but you can. And I think that's why I'm so grateful to be on your show, is because I feel like we don't get access to this information. Like, I was still operating spaces all the time, honestly, where I was the only one that looked like me in meetings. And I'm just like, what the, you know, because we're out here, we're intelligent, we just need to have access to this information. And I learned it because I got my foot in the door and I saw it, but it shouldn't be gatekept that way.
That's a lot of shit like that is. Speaking of it though, who you listen to right now, like music wise? Like,
ooh,
who you listen to right now?
I mean, Thames. I love Thames. I love Thames so much. I don't want to say her name wrong. I think it's Aquila. Aqyila. I know her song. It's the vibe for me, but it's also like the bob for me. Have you heard of it? Like, okay, well, you know, I'm not gonna sing.
Check it out.
Okay, cool. I was like, I'm not gonna sing because, you know, I get a little stage fright. You know what I'm saying? You know, but I just love her tone. I just like listen to like a lot of neo soul. I mean, Beyonce. Renaissance album was popping.
It was good, like really good.
I liked it. I'm also like a Beyonce fan in general, but like, no, I liked it.
Is that like top? Is that at the top of your list with Beyonce albums? Or was it like?
Oh, that's hard. Renaissance is not. It's very close to the top. I think for me,
because it's so different. You know?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, what do you even rank that? You know?
I think for me, Lemonade. That one.
That got the world on fire.
Yeah. I'm like trying like that one. I think is my number one. Yeah. So, anyways, but I listen to like
you
also
got
everything.
a little trance thinking about that Lemonade.
Look.
Bring back memories.
Look. No, for real, because I would like have like certain songs play when it was like when I was in college, like especially like, so my freshman year at U of I stayed in FAR dorms, and that dorm, they would call it the Beehive because it would be like mostly like black people, then Asian people. It was hella racist, okay, with like in terms of like what the nickname was, but like it was bumping, like it was dope, but it was also cool because like that's how I like was able to like meet my friends, and a lot of my friends too were like engineers too and stuff, and so like we were all on the same. It was like work hard, play hard, you know. You know what I'm saying? But like, I don't know, listening to her album kind of got me through the days where it's like, okay, I'm not sleeping too much, but I'm grinding. But like, I think that's even the thing about like working in games, because it seemed like everybody was like always running, and a lot of people in games are always running. I don't live my life like that.
Okay.
And I believe I can still thrive as a games producer, as a films producer, as a person, without having to consistently run. And I think that's just like where I'm at in life right now. Is I feel very grateful to be in the position I am and feel grateful for everything I've learned, but I also want to use that knowledge to open the doors for us, because we can be out here and we can run this. Like, we are the biggest consumers, so why not are we having like the most powerful seats in this industry? Like, it does not make sense.
So you're going to a new gaming company right now? Is it like black owned or something?
I mean, yes. Yes. So, I don't know how much I want to expose because it's going to come out soon anyway. So that means like folks need to follow me, okay, on all my channels. But I'm super excited about, I'm just going to talk about it just because I'm really excited about it. It is, okay, look. But yes, it is a black-owned game studio. So I'm gonna tell the story, and then I'll just have folks like, you know, just do your research and all this stuff. But what I also did at Microsoft was I was really good at positioning myself to be like, hey, like let me host things, let me be on camera, but be having powerful conversations. So like around a year and a half to 2 years ago, I got invited to host this panel on Black game devs, and so I'm meeting like all these dope people. And I met one of the founders of this game company. It's him and his brother. So I met him, had a meeting with him and his brother, and it was always something where it's like, oh, we just stayed in touch and everything. Then an opportunity came up, saying to be an associate producer. And it was that thing, what made me make that decision to be like, okay, it's time for me to go, is like, working with them is the dream. Working at Minecraft was safety.
Gotcha.
Because anyone that hears, oh, you work at Minecraft, that's so cool. It was cool. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was cool. And I loved especially seeing the looks on children's faces, especially Black children. When I was like, yo, I work at Minecraft. They're like, oh my God. And you never know what seeds I'm planting in their heads, because maybe they now want to work in games.
That brand's so big, it's like, everybody knows it. So it's like, it's just...
It like go, and that's something where I'm like, oh, am I gonna miss that? But I realize like there's so much power beyond that, right? But also like, I'm very creative. Like I'm very, very creative, and I wasn't able to do that too much in my role. Yes, there was opportunities. Like I was also on the Minecraft YouTube show, but that had nothing to do with like my technical PM role. That's just Jewel is in the building. You know what she's doing. Let's work together to like create content. Yeah. But in this role, I'm able to kind of exercise my creative abilities as well. So yeah, it's just a really great opportunity because it's a title I'm passionate about. The people are dope. The opportunities are there. And obviously I'm saying all this stuff before like I actually started. Like I'm in a transitioning phase, you know? But even when I like
speak it to existence now. Come on.
Exactly, right? Like I will say this, I do believe it's going to be life-changing. Yeah. And I do believe when I like saw the opportunity at full and actually understood the vision, I could not see a future where I wasn't part of this. So I was like, something is calling me to be part of this. Like this is, but it reminds me why I like fully got into the games industry in the first place. Okay. Exactly. Okay. So it's just like, it just feels right. And if anything, like I'm just like, I feel like I've poured all my talents in a company that is very much not Black owned. I'm much more rather, if I can, put it into our community so we can build an empire. Yeah. That's how we really change the economics, right?
You ain't lying. That's real.
We are going back to games, we are like one of the largest consumers, especially in this country. But like, we represent such a small 2%. 2%?
That's small. And even like, so, cause you big on history too. Like I'm like, okay, you on your history, what got you into that? Like, is that like a past thing that you used to like love, like read history books or go into like art history in general?
That's a good question. Cause to be honest, like when it came to history classes, I was like, but when it came to like history about us, I'm like, oh, okay. So I think it was kind of a balance of, it was either the teacher that made me interested or it was the subject that made me interested. And I think for me, I was one of those people where it's like, I feel like I've always done my research, but 2020 was that jolt for me because now I'm seeing myself having to like defend my opinions, especially in front of my non-Black counterparts. Gotcha. And so I'm like, now like, let me do my research. So it was something where I was like interested in, but it became a necessity for me to know. Okay. And then I was like, cool, if I'm going to create a show that's centered around this, I got to know the facts, but it's more become like a discipline now. Yeah. Okay.
See, I didn't know that. Learn something new every day. Nah, but that's what's up though. Like I ain't never think about it like that. Like around that time having to actually like defend, what you know in history.
It was a time. Sorry I cut you off.
No, you could.
Look, it was because I also think about some of the friendships I had because so going back, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And when I think back, because I had a really good conversation with, so my friend Q, she also part of that 2%, you know what I'm saying? She works in games, works in the Xbox. Shout out to Q, period. But she talked about how it was, honestly, it makes sense why I'm the way I am because of the way I grew up. Because growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood, it was like that constant feeling of like, wow, like I'm different from everyone. And there's nothing I can do to merge. And maybe I don't need to deal with them. You know what I mean? But also, like, I was born in Nigeria, came here when I was a baby. But, like, there was also, like, understanding and growing my culture. And I say this because I saw how these people evolved online.
Yeah.
I saw how their views, I don't want to say evolved, but how bold they got.
No, they evolved. Well, yeah, they evolved.
Let's say evolved, right? They got more guts to spew.
He can be involved in confidence. He can be involved in hate. You know, there's a lot of ways you can evolve.
And it's unfortunate when I saw it evolve in hate. I'll never forget, there was this one person that I like grew up with, and she was, honestly, it was the best way to kind of summarize like a Gen Z Karen, because she couldn't wrap around her head why I was like getting these opportunities. So like even prior to getting an internship at Microsoft, when it was like senior year of high school and we're applying to like scholarships, I applied to the Anita Borg Scholarship, which is basically a Google scholarship. Mm-hmm. Didn't get that, but I got into Google's Computer Science Summer Institute, and it was the first one they had in Chicago. So like, she was always someone that was kind of like, how'd you even get that? Even when I got the Microsoft thing, and it was just like that constant like talking down, but also like I saw some of her friends come and visit our freshman year. And again, I grew up with all these people, and I told you like what FAR was and like our representation. But like we're in like the basement area, and like one of like I'm going to say it was the Black Student Union, but it wasn't that group. We're just going to categorize. But they were like, there was like some kind of meeting, and like they were like, it was like some kind of like, people were just having fun. Yeah. But like, I remember one of the girls was like, oh no, they're going to riot.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I'm just like, and mind you, the composition of young women I was around, I grew up with all of them. I was the only Black woman in that group. But I'm just like, the ignorance.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like the evolution, where it's like, did they always feel that way? And I was like the exception. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you evolved though? Like coming from where you came from?
Oh hell yeah! Oh, we haven't even gotten to that.
You know what I mean?
100%.
I'm just saying.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Evolved confidence wise. 1,000% confident. Let me just say this on the confidence realm. There was the confidence of leaving high school to college, because I saw more people that looked like me in various facets, and I was like, okay, like, you know, I feel like I've always loved being a Black woman, but growing, I really grew more into it when college came in, if that made sense. So there was confidence then, but then there's also just holistic confidence professionally. And to be honest, I feel like I've started to really get that over the past 6 months.
Okay.
It's been a journey.